Hello, in today's video I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to challenge you to do 5 different things in various games and matches that will help you learn about your opponent, help you learn about the game in general, and definitely help you learn about yourself. So if that's of interest, stay tuned. Okay, so as I said in the introduction, this is about 5 challenges. I'm challenging you to do 5 different things. Now, I just want to put them in context. I'm not expecting you to do all of those challenges in one game. I'm not expecting you to do all of those challenges in one match. I'm not expecting you to do all of these challenges in one week. You can choose, once you see what the challenges are, you can choose what's the most appropriate game or match for you to try these things out, okay? My recommendation definitely initially is to do them in practice games. Do them in games where, you know, it's not like really important. You're not playing in tournaments or you're not playing in serious club matches. Do them in games where you've got practice partners. Maybe both of you do a different one, see what happens. But definitely try them in games that don't matter first before you try them in serious games. So let's get started. Let's start with number 1, okay? And number 1, forgotten what number 1 is already. Okay, here we go. Don't hit your favourite or best shot. So let me clarify. My favourite shot is the volley boast. My best shot is the backhand straight volley kill. Now, I play my favourite shot way too much and I don't play my best shot enough. I'm not really sure about that, why that is, but that's the way it is. So what I want you to do initially is I want you to identify your best shot and your favourite shot. It's quite possible that those two things are the same. You might actually do both. They could be the same. In which case, you might have become too dependent on that particular shot. Now, I'm not suggesting that you shouldn't have a best shot or a favourite shot. What I'm suggesting is that what would you do if it doesn't work one day? What would you do if your opponent notices that shot and is really good at responding to it, or finds a way for them to negate your particular advantage? You need a plan B, and a plan B has to be developed without your favourite shot. So this is like the plan A. Stop doing the plan A and find an alternative. I'm happy for you to have a favourite or a best shot, but just don't become so dependent on it. So find ways of improving your game without having that shot. That's like a really important thing. I mean, Bruce Lee said once that he doesn't fear the man who's practiced 10,000 kicks once, he fears the man who's practiced one kick 10,000 times. And when we do have a great shot, it can make a huge difference to our game. You can probably take the tennis players or the squash players and say, this person's shot is the one that they're good at. And that's great. And you should have one of those. But you should also have a plan B. All right, challenge number 2. Can't remember my own challenges today. Sorry about that. Hit every shot at... Can't spell. Hit every shot at a different speed. Now, you probably do this naturally anyway, but doing it without thinking is not the same as doing it on purpose. Imagine that you start to play somebody. You play a person and he hits the ball or she hits the ball incredibly hard. The first few points is like really quite difficult because it's faster than you've been expecting or faster than you've played against. But not suddenly, but over time, you become accustomed to that speed. And the advantage that that player had by hitting the ball much harder than other players that you play against has been lessened. Not negated, because it's still probably quite effective, but it's been lessened. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to kind of have at least 5 different speeds. You might find that you've only got 3 speeds to begin with. You've got like your hardest shot, the normal shot, and then your soft shot. And squash is much more, complex than that. It's much more gradiated. You'll probably find that if you were to analyse the speeds to which players hit the ball, the professionals have a wider range of shots in terms of speed than the lower club players. Lower club players tend to hit the ball, as I mentioned, like in just essentially 3 times the speed. So initially I want you to try and think of like 5, not think of 5, but develop 5 different speeds. Obviously the top one would be your hardest and the bottom one would be the counter drop. Those are ultimately soft shots. But there should be like 3 shots in the middle. Now to do this, every time you hit the ball, either verbally or internally, say the number that you hit it. Not loud enough so the other player can hear you. I mean, I'm not expecting you to go 5, 3, but in your mind so that you're constantly aware of it. As long as it doesn't interrupt the rest of your flow and your concentration, but you should be doing that to make sure that you're thinking about it. If I can find it, I will insert it into this video. But I saw on Squash TV, on the YouTube channel, a game between Gregory Gaultier and Ramy Ashour. And Ramy was hitting the ball really hard in one particular rally. And then he gets into the forehand corner. Gregory Gaultier had hit the ball into the corner. And he played this cross-court at about 70% his normal speed. And suddenly, Gregory hit this like fluffy, soft volley return because the change in speed caught him so much by surprise that he was sort of too early for it. And the ball came forward, and then I'm pretty sure that Ramy just finished it. Now that's my memory of the situation. Maybe it was the other way round, but it was the change in speed that caused the other player to mistime the ball. And that's what happens in real games, that we become so accustomed to one particular speed that when the opponent hits it at a different speed, our timing is a little bit off. And that's what you're hoping to exploit by this particular one. You're hoping to exploit the idea that you're going to ruin the timing of the other person. And conversely, be aware of what speed your opponent hits it. So if you notice that they're changing speeds, don't automatically start swinging at the same speed. Just become much more aware. Number 3, make the first 3 points as long as possible. I run out of space here. So I'm just going to long first 3, and I'm hoping that my camera doesn't cut off that. In the past I've talked about setting the tone, and the setting of the tone is the idea that you're going to make the first 3 points solid points. You're not going to go for anything silly. You're not going to go for cross-court nicks on the second shot. You're not just going to play for winners when you should be playing defensive. But I want you to take that one step further. I want you to consciously make sure that the first 3 rallies of this game are as long as possible. Now this is really important in the very first game, because if your opponent hasn't warmed up properly, you have the opportunity to break them straight away. I have like a slightly embarrassing anecdote here. There was one time I was practicing with Jahangir Khan, and in my eagerness to get down on the court and start hitting the ball, it wasn't the first time I'd been on court with him, but I was, you know, as you can probably imagine, so eager to get on court with maybe the best player that's, you know, ever lived, or he was world #1 at the time, of course, and I didn't warm up properly. I warmed up, but I didn't warm up properly, and I didn't psych myself up, and that's kind of like something that we'll need to talk about eventually as well. So I got on court, and we hit the ball for a couple of minutes, of course, just like a normal warm-up. He'd already been on court for 20 minutes, just hitting the ball himself. So he was really warm, and I wasn't. And the first 3 points were really long, and not a lot of people know, but he's got like a little evil side to him. He's quite happy to make you work, and there's like that little bit of a devil on there. And he quite enjoyed making me work, and for the first 3 points we had long, good quality rallies, but I just was not ready for it, mentally and physically. And for the rest of the 6 points, because it was a 9-love game, I was just finished. I had to leave the court, I had to cool down, I had to do some sort of stretching and warm up again slowly and come back on, and after that it was much better. But you can break somebody physically, and I'm pointing to the heart here because it's called oxygen debt. They just can't get enough oxygen in. And mentally, and it happened to me. Okay, it was only a practice game. So you need to make sure that you've warmed up properly and take advantage of the fact that maybe your opponent hasn't. Now, it's not just about trying to tire them out. It's about setting the tone of, if you want to win the points, you're going to have to work really hard for it. Now, as I said, it worked really well in the very first game of the match, but you should be doing something like this for the rest of the games as well. In the short term, you might lose more points than you win, and you might lose more points because you're not fit enough or you haven't warmed up enough. But that's one of the benefits. You'll get fitter and stronger just from doing this. So that's really important. All right, so here we go. Number 4. Gosh, my memory's terrible today. Whoops. Hit the ceiling at least once. Now, I don't just mean hitting the ball. Squash players, professional squash players, are very aware of the width of the court, the length of the court, and the height of the court. Club players are quite aware of the width, quite aware of the length, but they seem to sort of forget that there's a lot of height there. You know, there's like six meters. You need to use the height of the court, not just defensively, but because it's there. It's there, take advantage of it. You could probably take a video camera and go to any club in the world and watch average club players, and you could probably cut out half of the front wall and the ball never hits that part. It doesn't hit the front wall and it doesn't go in that space. We notice it when it's not there. I mean, I'm in a room now where if I jump, I can touch the ceiling. And if I were to play squash in this room here, it would be like, wow, this is like really weird. But when we're on a court, we don't think, wow, that's a lot of space. I could really use that. And we should be. You should be using the height. We try to use the width. We talk so much about using the length. But where's the height? Use the height, Luke. That should be, you know, forget the force, use the height. So what I want you to do is, and I want you to purposefully hit the ceiling, but if you haven't hit the ceiling at least once per match, you're probably not trying to use the full height of the court. Now, I need you to focus on the front wall. The front wall, when you're near the front, will be obviously where you hit the ball, but what I need you to do is, I need you to be thinking cut line. I need you to be thinking just above the cut line. Okay, so that you've got more height. The higher you hit it on the front wall, the sooner it will hit the ceiling. When I say sooner, I don't mean in time, I mean in distance. If you hit it really close to the outline on the front wall, then it's going to hit the ceiling really close. As you move back, as you lower it on the front wall, then it goes further and further back. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to make the ball go into the corner, hit the side wall, just like a serve area, and then die in the corner. That's your objective. If you get it right, it will hit the side wall and it will bounce and it will die before it hits the back wall. Now that's an ideal situation. But all I'm hoping to do with challenge number 4 is change the mentality. Realise that you've got a lot of height in this court and use it effectively. Just a silly thing here, tennis was invented in around the 1890s. The first recorded official lob was in 1920. All right, let me let that sink in for a second, okay? So we've got, if I put it here, they started playing tennis around the 1890s. It was around 1920 before the officially first recorded lob. That's 30 years before somebody said, maybe I should hit a ball over his head. Probably it was to do with manners. It wasn't considered the right thing to do, the gentlemanly thing to do. Okay? Forget that. As squash players, we've got height, and I expect you to use it. Last challenge. On the volley. I love volleying. Maybe because I come from a serve and volley tennis background, that's when I first started hitting balls with rackets. So I'm constantly looking for the ball. I'm constantly looking to volley the ball. And not enough players do. Now, maybe that's to do with the fact that they're not comfortable on the volley. Maybe it's to do with the fact that they're not watching the ball. Instead of watching the corner when their opponent starts to hit the ball, or just before they hit, many club players, they look up. They think that they can see more by looking at the front wall instead of by looking at the opponent. Whereas if you look at the opponent, you can see where the ball's going and you can be sure. So I want you to hunt the volley. Yeah, I'm sure you probably volley when it comes to you, but don't let it come to you. You go to it. Hunt the volley down. Be looking to hit these volleys. Now, this is a challenge, remember. I'm not expecting you to do this all of the time in every single game, but for this particular game where you're hunting the volley, you'll probably get yourself in situations which are not very good. You'll probably even lose the game, but you will be benefiting from it. So constantly be looking to take the ball early would be rushing your opponent. Now there's a very fine line between rushing your opponent and rushing yourself, and you will learn through that process of hunting the volley. So let me summarise. This idea is active learning. Active learning is the idea that you go out and consciously try and learn something from it. Now, most of the time when we play sports, we're not actively learning, we are passively learning. We'll learn something, but it's more like osmosis, that it will sort of subconsciously come in and you'll sort of realise later, or you notice that you've changed the game. But here, you're actively trying to do different things, seeing the result and getting benefit from those things. Now, I'm not expecting you to do them all in one game, all in one match. But over a period of time, I want you to try each of these challenges and notice the difference. I'm not suggesting that you will win each of the games that you play. That's not about that. It's not called active winning. I've called it active learning. You will learn something. You will improve. You might not win that game, but you will improve. So those are the challenges. I'm very curious to hear people's responses. So please, write some comments, email me, do whatever you want to do. But tell me how it works for you, what was interesting, what didn't work as well. And that's it. So thanks for watching, and remember, do something every single day for your squash. See ya.